Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. No, Kristen did not suddenly have her voice drop 5 octaves. This is Mike Sarnowski, Vice President of Sports. Kristen, unfortunately, had a conflict arise for this evening unexpectedly and is not able to be with us, but I'm here covering for her along with Steve Bennett. And I apologize, I forgot to put on this top slide, Jack Brosius is with us as well. Should also point out, since many of you get the area memo, where we announced that Kristen is actually moving to a different position within Special Olympics Maryland, working with our Interscholastic Unified Sports Program. But she will be continuing with kayaking, and for those of you who are cycling, she'll be continuing with cycling this season as well, before shifting full-time over into that position. The other piece of news I wanted to share with you, I found out just before I left headquarters today, and this is kudos to our coaches, to Jack, to our overall program. After submitting it for a rule change for, I think this is the third time we submitted it. The Special Olympics published the brand new rules for 2018 either today or yesterday. I just saw them today. And the 1K, or the 1,000 meter, has been added to kayaking as an official event. Wouldn't affect us, we'd still be doing it, but now it's official, and because of our drive and your work with your athletes, part of and such, we made it happen and made a change for Special Olympics. One of the things that I know convinced them is we had lots of really good data in terms of proving that the athletes can handle it and can do it well. So thank you to you. Thank you on behalf of Special Olympics as a whole to all of you for making that happen. We're pretty excited. Like I say, just found out about it within the last hour and a half or so. So, and again, well, we'll dive right in.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to all of us, I think, is the big push with that. So we're going to cover a few things. Hopefully most of this is familiar, since we just had the time trials 10 days ago. We're excited. Weather's looking great at this point, and so we're looking forward to having a great weekend or a great Saturday for folks. So the schedule, first the drop-off schedule for kayaks, this I believe is exactly the same, or pretty darn close to it, for what we had at time trials. That system, given the current setup that we're working with the construction, seemed to work pretty well. Well, again, we'll have someone out there directing traffic and managing that process as well during those times.
One other thing is Anne Arundel already have their boats, and we'll place them for them on Friday.
Oh, great. Okay, so Anne Arundel, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
okay.
they practiced at the site last weekend, and I said leave them here, and we'll put them out for you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jack, and I'm sure Al's back thanks you as well. So great. So the schedule itself as well. You're not so much worried about volunteer registration and volunteer training, but delegation check-in. It will be open at 9. We actually probably will be open a little bit before that. The little computer snafu that I had to resolve that morning at time trials won't be recurring, because I know about it now. So we'll have it open as soon as we can. That's all. It says the dock open. That's means you can have your folks get out there on the water and check things out. You can actually get out there earlier if you want, to have your athletes out and check out the courses, get a little bit of warm up on the water. Of course, you or one of your coaches will need to be out there with them. We won't be having any of the chase kayaks out during that warm up period. And that also means the dock itself is open for that time, for coaches and such to walk down there if you want to do that. At 9:30, we will have a coaches meeting, same location as we had for the time trials at the base of the ramp over in the staging area. And also at 9:30, we need to have all the kayaks off the water so we can start opening ceremonies right on time at 10 o'clock. We'll have opening ceremonies, and then staging will start at 10:30. Just as we did with the time trials, if we can start a little early, we certainly will give that a shot, and see if we can get through some of the events and such. We're not trying to rush, but we certainly want to move with a deliberate speed. We'll be doing the doubles races first for each of the events, and go the 500s, then the 100, the 200, and the 1K. And I'm sorry, I should also point out, although I think all of you are veterans of the webinars, if you have a question, raise your hand in the in your control panel, or type a question in. Steve's monitoring them, and we'll either respond to you or interrupt, and we'll go for the questions there. We also have time for questions at the end. So again, we'll go 500, then the 100, the 200, and the 1K. That should give pretty much everybody a halfway decent rest, except the 100 going into the 200 may have some overlap. A little bit of the 200 possibly going into the 1K. We'll have the lunches available starting at 11:30. We'll touch on that, but it's the same process, same location as before. And we're saying 4 o'clock as the conclusion of the event. It may be earlier than that. In fact, I would expect that it probably would be a somewhat earlier. But that's all weather dependent and such. So the park, yeah, I'm sorry?
Good weather.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I have a slide on the weather coming up. Yeah, it should be great weather. So Wilmer Park, the setup, we're going to have things, most things, pretty much the same place we had them for time trials. We're going to continue with the control center and delegation check-in up here in the large pavilion. We are moving the announcer and an announcer tent down to the ground level. We heard from folks that sometimes it was hard to hear, and they couldn't turn the speakers up too much louder up there because they were going to blast everybody out of the pavilion. So we're moving it down, and hopefully that'll make things easier for everybody to hear. Again, we'll have the portable toilets in roughly the same place. We may adjust them because of where we're putting awards, but over here and there. We have confirmed that we will have a food truck this time. We're not sure what happened to the food truck last time. These two items here are merchandise, and also family hospitality is here, and then volunteer check-in is up here. And then awards, this is the backdrop. Awards will be over in here, kind of angled for that. So when your athletes finish the race, I don't think we have this on a map elsewhere, when they finish their race, unless they need to stage for another race, they should get the kayak back on shore and then come right over. They'll walk through the pavilion right over to the awards area, and we'll be radioing in the scores. So in theory, they should have the scores already at the awards area by the time your athletes come over, and they can get their awards right away. Just as with any of our other events, if they have a conflict where they have to get right back into staging for another race, like I say, that 100 to 200 window, that might be the case for some folks. That's fine. They can miss their award and then come back over at another time and have it presented on the award stands without any problem. The parking will be the same as we've had last time. That seemed to work pretty well with the using the parking lot as well as out on the main road. Again, parking only in legal spaces, and yeah, it should be. It seemed to work relatively well as a adjustment given the construction going on. So registration and check-in. Again, have one person come and check in. Again, it says 9 o'clock, but if you're there and we're ready to roll, come on up and we'll get it to you. I'll talk through some of the stuff that'll be in the packet again when we get a little further. Again, while that's happening, the head coach or the HOD is checking everybody in. Partners, athletes, other coaches can be unloading the boats if that's something that they need to do. And be sure that each of your kayaks has the label of the kayakers who will be using it. Again, the coaches meeting at 9:30 at the base of the ramp over in the shore staging. And please be sure that you have your head coach, or if for some reason the head coach is not available, a designee at that meeting, and be sure to share any information from that meeting with everybody from your delegation. Opening ceremonies and awards. The plan right now for opening ceremonies is to be in the pavilion next to the staging in the large pavilion there. And if there's any change to that, we'll let you know. And then awards, I showed you where that is. And again, come right over there. Have your athletes come right over there following their race. Trailer parking, again, pretty much the same. Unload and then go over to the parking area. We will, I believe we plan to have the golf cart again available, although I don't know anybody that anybody used it, since most cases folks just unhitched their trailer and drove back over to the parking lot. But we do plan to have that available if there should be a need. Talked about the delegation spaces. Again, I think everybody managed themselves quite well with the open space in the park and sharing. There is that one pavilion that's available over closer to the parking lot. It's really on a first come, first serve, and use it and share. I think this is a very camaraderie oriented group of coaches and delegations, and that can make it nice. Again, we're not expecting any rain at this point, but we should be great. But let's see. Again, accessing the dock. You can go out there from 9 to 9:30, but not during competition. And that's really just in terms of making sure that we can manage it properly. You think one coach out there shouldn't be an issue, and generally speaking, one coach out there isn't an issue. But if we let one coach out, we need to let all coaches out to be fair, and then it becomes a huge issue in terms of space and safety. So again, please do honor that. Of course, if someone from the management team directs you to come on, or if you need to do a swap with your kayaks, or as I think was the case where one kayaker flipped and we needed a coach out there to help them when they came back in, that of course will certainly be reasonable with that. Lunches and meals, again, the same situation as we had at time trials. We've got your orders. I think everybody who needed to update their order has done so. And we'll have the lunches there. We'll have them pre-boxed for you. As some folks noticed, particularly for those of you with larger delegations, you may want to bring 2 people instead of just 1 to help carry. Depending upon the boxes that we have available, of course, we'll split them into smaller boxes. But it is, for those of you like Anne Arundel or Montgomery, some of the ones that have a lot of folks in their counties, please be sure to have folks to help you bring the lunches back. Again, course inspection open until 9:30. You have to accompany your kayakers out on the water for this period from a safety standpoint, and again, everybody off the water. And I should also say we'll send these slides out, but this is all pretty much standard. Medical will be located in the pavilion. And family hospitality in that location I indicated near the merchandise tent. Again, the weather. So again, if we do have any light rain or whatever, we will continue. Lightning would be the kicker, but so far this was pulled this afternoon. Saturday is looking not only bright and sunshiny, but relatively cool for an August day, with a high of 81. This is for Chestertown itself. So things are looking up. I think we sweated enough bullets a week and a half ago, worried about time trials, that the weather gods are doing us a favor this time. So we, of course, will be monitoring the events and monitoring any lightning strikes and such. We have access to a service that is exceptional in letting us know well ahead of time when lightning strikes are expected in our immediate area. And so we may be pulling folks off the water, but again, based on this forecast, it doesn't seem like that's going to be an issue at all. So we will have credentials for coaches, athletes, and partners, of course, will have their bib with the label on it, with their information on it. But coach credentials will be blue. Games management team credentials will be pink. It looks kind of magenta, but it's really pink. And staff will have the name badges. If you have an issue that you need help with, you can always ask someone who has one of these pink badges or a staff badge. If they can't answer your question for you, they certainly can get in touch with someone who can help you in that regard. Typically, these folks are also going to have radios, which can help with that. With your delegation packets and such. So when we send the slides out tomorrow, or Kristen sends them out, we will include the time sequence reports that we put in there. And this is 2018. So Jack, you can jot down when Mike Adams has his races if you want. But you'll get both versions of these listed by athlete as well as by time. For those of you who haven't used this time sequence report, we affectionately call it the Mary Lou Bucci report, or the MLB report, because it was Mary Lou's idea, oh good Lord, 15 years ago, to do something she had been doing by hand for skiing and for track, and we took it up, so always want to give her credit for that. But this can be a really useful tool in terms of knowing when you need to have the next person up and such. So if folks haven't been using it, you can use this almost as a checklist of who needs to be where, when. Of course, if we get a little ahead of schedule, adjust accordingly, but it'll always be in this sequence there. So you have the time, who it is, their bib number, what the event is, and what their division is. Even has their lane number on there. So that can be really useful. And again, we'll have 2 copies of each of these reports in your packet when you arrive, but we will also be sending these, again, we'll send the whole batch of them for everybody with the slides and the link to the recording from tonight's session when Kristen sends that out tomorrow. And if you want to print more copies of it, you can print as many as you want. You can print one for every family member or whoever floats your boat. We'll, of course, have the labels on their bibs again, like this, and you will also be getting, as we did with time trials, an extra set of those labels. You can use those labels in your packet for whatever you want. They're there. Some folks use them, some folks throw them away, but enough folks have said they find them useful that we put them in there. Family members can also get a label for their athlete over at family registration or family hospitality. You'll also, of course, have your bib numbers and your pins in your packets when you check in. We're also going to go with, this seemed to work really well, go with giving each delegation one of the large trash bags. Use that to collect your trash and just leave it tied up at your location, and we'll have a truck come around and pick them all up. If you have a large group and you need a second bag, no problem, come on up and we'll get them for you. That seemed to work pretty well. I hope it was convenient for you all out there in the field with your groups, and just seems to make things so much easier. Yes, Jack?
We got a lot of compliments from the town people on how clean we left the park.
Oh, great. I don't know if folks heard Jack was a little soft there, but you said we got lots of compliments from the townspeople on how clean we left the park. That's great. We always want to try to leave the place better than than it was when we arrived, or at least as good as it was when we arrived. So, Jack, thank you. That's really great to hear. This is the first time we've used the park, and so I think it's working out pretty well. And so thanks. So again, we'll have all that for you. And if you need more trash bags, just come let us know. The course map, again, the courses will be essentially the same as they were a week and a half ago. You have your races here. Again, we won't be doing multiple races simultaneously. We'll be doing the 500, which is the full length first, followed by the 100, which will be from it's roughly to this pink dot here. Then the 200, and then the 1K. I'll show you the 1K in just a moment. We'll have the safety kayakers out there as well, and such, and should be in good shape. Again, all the races will start from the dock here. The 1K. I'm sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
We'll have 2 safety power boats on the water at all times.
Great, great. So for the 1K, we're going to start them a couple in years past, we had started them off to the side of a lane, I think,
Right.
but this just seems to make more sense. Is we're going to start them in that lane that's closest to the shore. They'll go down, essentially do the 500, turn left. So this is all left turns. Turn left, come out to outside of the last lane, turn left again, and come down. We will have the pontoon boat moved. That was a snafu, and we apologize for that. I don't think it'll affect any of the divisioning. Everybody was dealing with the same slight obstacle there. But they'll come down and then just pass between the buoy and the edge of the dock to finish it off. As we have done with the 1K, well, with the other races, they'll all be mass starts in the lanes of up to three kayaks and starting the race. The 1K will be an interval start with one kayaker starting and then going through. So that I think this was gone over previously, but in case it wasn't, the 1K is divisioned as actual divisions. The kayakers are not necessarily starting by divisions. They will be starting from the absolute fastest based on the time trial through to the slowest kayakers. And because we factor in gender and age and other things in terms of working it out, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the kayakers are going to be, for a given division, are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. The reason that we do it that way is to minimize the likelihood of anybody passing. There's one variation on that, and that is that the doubles will start first, but we'll wait till they're far enough down that we can then start the first kayaker. So again, the whole purpose on that is to minimize the need for any passing and such. So don't be surprised if you're the first kayaker, that you're the last person in your division may not be in for a bit. So this is one variation when I was talking about awards will probably have the results before your athlete gets over there. It's a possibility that they might not for the 1K, only because there may be some other kayakers that are still on the water from your division. Just some rules reminders. I think you're all on top of that. Again, for all the straight events, if an athlete or partner travels outside of their lane during the competition, they get a 5-second penalty from their recorded score, and so that can change their place. That's, of course, if they don't impede another athlete. If they do impede, they'll be disqualified. If they're fully outside of their lane at the finish, they'll be considered a disqualification. And again, as noted in that fourth bullet, if they go outside of their lane, either partially or entirely outside of their lane, if they have their kayak halfway into another lane, that's still going past or crossing the lane barrier, and that can count as a disqualification. For the 1K, I mentioned there should be limited numbers of situations where folks might be passing, but it's certainly possible that the kayak in the lead always has the right of way, and the kayak behind has to give, it's their responsibility to avoid hitting the kayak in front as they're passing. Going around, typically it's going to be on the right of the kayak as they're going, so just make sure that your folks know that. Again, we'll have them staggered enough that the likelihood of passing should be minimal, but it's certainly always possible. And then also, as noted there, the lane number for, let me back up here, for the 1K, hopefully some will be on here. So here, and we can't see any, sorry. So where it says the lane number, excuse me, that's actually the sequence number for the 1K. So if they're in lane, if they're listed as lane number 25, that means they're the 25th kayaker for the 1K. So we're not doing lanes for the 1K, but that helps us run some reports, and that gives you a sense also of when your kayaker is going to go. We, of course, also have the estimated times and when they need to report to staging. That's on their labels and all for the 1K as well.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Everybody should remember that lane 1 is always the lane closest to the starter.
So the lane closest, and and the starter is closest to the shore. So lane one
Yeah.
is closest to the shore
Right.
at our lane, at our setup. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Um, let's see. DQs. Um, competitors, again, as noted on the previous slide. For the finals, it's unlikely that we'll be doing any reruns. We do that in the time trials because the sole purpose of the time trials is to get a score. It would have to be really egregious to do that in the finals. Um, uh, and unfortunately, if someone is impeded, it's part of sports. Like I say, it would be a very rare exception if we were to do any type of a rerun for the finals. The maximum effort rule, which hopefully all of you are familiar with, and I really hope that you aren't afraid to use it, because there's been a lot of misconceptions about the maximum effort rule. What the maximum effort rule basically says is that if an athlete in finals does a certain percentage, and there is no set percentage, it varies, but does significantly better than their entry score, in this case their time trial score, that the maximum effort rule could come into play. And there's a number of options in terms of what can happen if the maximum effort rule is in play, ranging from a warning to a disqualification from the race and from the event. The way that Maryland applies the rule, we do this across all sports in virtually all cases, is that it's not automatic. It is based on a coach of another athlete in that race filing a protest. If that happens, it happens at the track all the time. It happens at swimming some and such. If your athlete's in a race and someone else in that race just did I don't know 30% faster than what they were entered as, by all means, I mean, defend your athlete. File a protest. I can tell you at the track, most of you know I ran the track for years and years, and then Ron Freeman took it over and has actually taken it 20 notches higher than when I was doing it. But we were dealing with this frequently. I would say we probably had over the years, again, spread out over the years, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 maximum effort protests. I think there was only one case where we actually disqualified the athlete because the way we look at it is this is to prevent someone from deliberately submitting an erroneous score or deliberately doing worse in a time trial or a prelim so that they can get into a better heat or an easier heat in the finals. What most frequently happens is we split the division. Or we do some other placement change. I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but I've talked to some coaches, and some of them are just afraid to do that because they don't want to hurt another athlete. Well, my God, you're not hurting the other athlete, you're defending yours. And no one's going to think less of you for filing that protest to defend your athlete. So please take a look at it. Kristen will be sending out the divisions. I don't know that, and it'll have their preliminary scores or their entry scores for them. I don't know that they're going to go out with the stuff tomorrow night or tomorrow when the slides go out, but you'll have that listed. We'll also be posting the results that'll have the entry scores on them somewhere close to the awards area. So please don't be, I don't want to have everybody filing one because someone did 5% better. It needs to be significant. But don't have any qualms about that. Don't ever have qualms about defending your athletes. So please, again, it's rare. I think there's only been one time where we determined that it was deliberate or so egregious. I mean, I think it was a shot put, if I remember correctly, and the athlete put the shot 3 times what their entry score was. which was just clearly, anyway. So I don't need to beat a dead horse there. You know what I'm saying? Don't hesitate with this. Again, if it's a significant difference from what that athlete was entered in. Again, divisions, competition schedules. So the competition schedules and divisions will go out no later than Thursday. They may or may not go out with the stuff tomorrow. I think while everything is set, getting the reports run and double checked may be another step. So again, you'll get a packet on site that I mentioned before. Oh, she's going to include the master heat sheets as well. So you'll have one copy there, but you can print more if you want.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
This is Steve. I have one clarification. There was a question about the 1K and the block numbers or the group numbers of how athletes will be called out to compete. We obviously have the lane numbers on the distribution material, but could you just clarify if the block or the group would be on any of the forms, or that just needs to be listened to?
Well, it'll be, I think they'll call like we put them in blocks this time of roughly 10 athletes in a block. I think like the first one is at 2:15, then one's at 2:30, and then one's at 2:45. They'll I guess announce the time, and also they were able to announce the names in many cases last time, and so they'll do that as well. That's probably the best that we can do for that.
Thank you.
And it looks like Alan, before we go any further, Alan has a question on DQs. I'll go ahead and open up the line. Alan, you should be able to talk with us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
I had two athletes who DQ'd in the 500. Now, because of the way things are set up with the construction, I couldn't visualize the race at the end of the race. And I didn't have any notice of the DQ until several days after the race. And so is there any way that we can improve on that situation so that the coach is more informed on a timely basis about that? I'm not saying the athletes didn't DQ, but usually if we had the old physical setup, I would have been watching the whole race from the side and I would have seen it in real time, and that would have been that. But it just seems to be a little hole in the system, and it may be unavoidable given the physical restraints of the way the geography is set up.
Excellent point, Alan. What I can tell you that we can do, because we definitely will have radios calling back the scores from the finish line. And Ron Freeman will be there keying them in to the computer, but also recording them. If there is a DQ in the finals, we will make every effort to get in touch with you guys, either make an announcement for someone to come to the control center or to help. We can capture your cell phone numbers. The only risk with the cell phones is reception down there is pretty spotty. But we will make a note on that and make every effort to make sure that we get in touch with you, because yeah, you can't. That was definitely a hole. So
okay, following up on that, and this is a reach, and I recognize that, but in the two instances in question for me, the athletes did have a time. Is there any way that they can compete at the finals, given what you said earlier about giving people an opportunity to compete?
They are entered. Anybody who was there, we basically applied the same rule or the same process that we've used for other events where we have time trials, which is they've been entered into a race for a participation ribbon. That's pretty much, and they had to do that across the board because it wasn't always the case that we got a time for an athlete who got DQ'd. And typically, for those of you who don't know or are wondering how did they get DQ'd, in most cases it was because they finished the race completely outside of their lane. But in some cases we didn't get a score, and so we can't apply that fairly across the board for everyone. So
okay, I just say it was a reach. Thank you.
Yeah, no. It's hey, we always want to have a relationship with everybody where you feel comfortable asking that. And hey, no, that's great. It's good to ask. Unfortunately, in this case, to be fair to everybody, we really can't. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. Just going ahead again. We've talked about the courses and all. This is all repeats from before. All kayakers come in off the water by 9:30, so on. I don't think any of the things with the uniforms are any kind of an issue. Excuse me. Again, nothing's changed there. Oops, sorry. There we go. You need to have the flotation devices. No changes here. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing I mentioned earlier about the new rules. I should have said this at that time. So those of you who joined us a little later than the very beginning, the new kayak rules, the new rules for all the sports, were posted on the SOI, the Special Olympics website, either yesterday or today. I saw them late this afternoon. In addition to the great news that they have honored Maryland's multiple requests to add the 1K as an official event. The other thing I went through and checked is, as you may recall from any time we've talked about rule changes, when we're in the middle of a season, if new rules come out, we don't switch over to those new rules unless there is a health or safety situation with the rule, in which case we need to, just from a safety standpoint. I personally went through all the new kayak rules this afternoon, and there are no changes that are safety related or health and safety related. So in case that pops into somebody's head, that's been checked, doesn't apply to anything that we're doing, and so won't have any effect at all on the competition this weekend. But again, so everything else here applies. Let's see. Again, the command's going to be racers ready, and then the air horn will use the white flag as well for those who are hearing impaired. Again, the red flag shows the violation, and also a red flag doesn't necessarily mean that it's a DQ. It means that there was some type of a violation or an infraction. Yeah, I don't think there's anything changed here that's any different. Then other than that, just any other questions that anybody may have.
I've been checking.
Just remember.
Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
Okay, everybody remember, the 100 meters and the 200 meter finish lines are the big yellow buoys, and the 500 meter finish line are big red buoys. And the buoys are actually below the finish line. So if you go through those buoys, you're going to go across the finish line. And that is the international rule.
Okay. Great. Any other questions?
And I don't see any currently. While I'm doing one last check for any questions. Again, as Mike indicated earlier in the webinar, as far as the loading and unloading, I think it went pretty well at the time trials. We'll kind of keep that same process going. And again, just be patient here and there as we try to get everyone taken care of. So I appreciate your patience at time trials, and hope we'll have that again at the championships.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you, everybody, for spending a little bit of time with us. Congrats again on what you guys have made possible. Again, I'm just so happy to have that 1K added officially as a rule. We knew our athletes could do it, and now the rest of the world knows it too and can go forward with it. So thank you for that, and look forward to seeing you all in a couple days. Thank you much. Have a great rest of your evening.